Welcome to The Beauty Shift, proudly sponsored by Keranique, America's #1 hair regrowth system created by women for women. I'm Michelle Phillips. I'm a celebrity stylist and beauty expert, a national TV personality, and self-confidence coach. And over the years, I've worked with some of the most recognized faces in the world, helping them look and feel their absolute best inside and out. That ultimate inner outer wow. Now that's true beauty, my friends. Today we have an incredible guest who is an expert at helping people own their power, communicate with confidence, and step into the spotlight. Peggy Klaus. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, and countless other major publications. She's worked with Fortune 500 executives, politicians, entrepreneurs, all helping them build their presence, their influence, and their leadership skills. Get ready for an inspiring, no-nonsense conversation as we welcome the brilliant Peggy Klaus to The Beauty Shift. Peggy, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I am so excited to be here. I have been wanting to see you for years. So
I know. It's been so long. Yet I feel like I mean, because I read your newsletters all the time and I'm following what you're doing, I feel like even though time has passed, it just feels like yesterday that we saw each other. And, you know, you are such a gift to me. And I'll share my story about how you helped me with self-confidence, which completely changed the outcome of something that was a big deal for me. But before we get to that, I would love for you to just share overall, like what you do to help women and coach women, not only executives, but also everyday women to help build their confidence.
Well, it started about 30 years ago. I was in the entertainment business. And then I saw the dearth of really good programs in communication and leadership in the corporate world. So I started creating these programs based on the foundation that I had in Hollywood, actually, from my work as an actor and a classical singer and a producer and director. And that all went really well. And then I started to see, and this is really not a surprise because I'm the youngest of 4 girls, that women really needed a lot of support. And so I created some programs around women in leadership, around executive presence for women. Then came my book, Brag, The Art of Tooting Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. And while that had a very wide distribution, it really has a resonance. And I say has in the present tense, Michelle, because truly I thought that after 22 years, I would be retired from talking about bragging, but that's not true. So I started to do a lot of women's conferences, which is where you and I met. And then, workshops on navigating the narrow band and soft skills. And then this new and latest one about unstoppable confidence.
A lot of women that I work with, whether it be celebrities on camera or just everyday women, that we've all pretend on the outside like we're okay. But inside, you know, we go to bed at night struggling, thinking, what if I'm not good enough? What do people think of me?
I always tell people that I just can scratch the surface of even the most successful women out there, and you will get stories of lack of confidence, of imposter syndrome, of nervousness about risk taking, all the things that you're talking about. So it doesn't matter how successful one becomes, there's always that self-doubt. The thing is, though, and I put this in my newsletter last week, is that you don't need 100% confidence. I don't even know when I've ever felt 100% confident. I just need partial confidence.
Where do we begin to take the steps to build our self-confidence? What are some of the ways that you suggest we do that?
I'll give you a little template. First want people to start out acknowledging their strengths and the successes they've had. And this is not easy for women because they poo poo their accomplishments and they say, oh, it's really nothing. And you know how difficult it is for women to take a compliment. So I want them to start with a list of the strengths that you have and the successes. And if you say, oh my gosh, well, does she want me to go back to, when I was born? No, you can do the last year, you can do the last 2 years if you want, but make a list. Let yourself see that. Then what I suggest is to do a reflection on what I call the shadows, the things that prevent you from really being who you want to be. And these shadows can be perfectionism, feeling like a fraud, fear of taking risks, and then evaluate how those behaviors keep you from making a change in your life that you really want to see. Then I would say do a risk assessment analysis. Look at the risks attached to making a small change in your life. And nothing, really huge, just start small and ask yourself, well, what would be both the positive outcomes of this and what could be the negative outcomes? And am I willing to reckon with that whatever could be the fallout from this?
We are programmed, wired to look at what's wrong with us as opposed to what's right with us. And then there's that programming that to be the good girl, don't make waves. Bragging about ourselves seems conceited, or sticking up for ourselves and saying we deserve more, or I don't like this, or I want this to change, comes across in a man's world when it comes to business as a bitch. Right? I mean, there's just so many things that we are constantly battling. And if we start really feeding ourselves more of what's great about us and focusing on those things and listing those things, and, if we need to create affirmations or whatever it is, it shifts you. It takes time, but it does shift you.
Well, if you have decades of telling yourself negative reinforcement, then it does take a lot of time and prompting and support and encouragement and getting out of your comfort zone to do that. So I think what you tell your audiences is absolutely spot on. And I do think that, and I know you've seen this so much, Michelle, as I have, is that women will not make a move to get out of that comfort zone, to take that risk, unless they are 100% confident, unless they have done it before, unless they have that track record. I mean, I have seen so many instances where opportunities come up and the men in the room are all raising their hands saying, pick me, pick me. They don't have half the qualifications that the women do. And the women are then self-deprecatingly mumbling about, well, I've never done it before. Maybe I should wait a little bit or get some more experience or take a course. And I just want to push them off the cliff and say, fly, you can do this. You can do this. So, the way that I define confidence is having a deep self-assurance in your abilities, in your knowledge and experience. And it is also a deep belief, a deep knowing that whatever challenges present themselves, that you will meet them and prevail. And I think it's really, really difficult for women to have that mindset.
It is. And especially if you're starting off in something that's relatively new, which kind of leads to the story that how I met you, that I was in that fake it till you make it phase, which I want to talk about too, right? Because sometimes we're on a path and then we're given opportunities or something comes into our life that we think, oh, I really want that. And then you think, oh, but I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. So when I was a beauty and makeup artist and stylist working in television behind the scenes, and then I'm asked to be on camera and give beauty and style tips, then I'm given a book deal. So I write a book about my journey and not only beauty, but also building my inner confidence. And I'm invited to speak on the Power of Women tour. My first speaking engagement, which is where I met you, started off in Toronto, Canada, and it was like 3,500 women. And it's just, it's unbelievable. I get up and speak, and I'm sharing my little presentation I put together and get off stage. And next thing I know, my agent calls and she's like, "What happened?" And I was like, "What do you mean what happened?" And she said, "Oh, it didn't go so well." And because I never, being on TV is very different than giving a presentation or a live speech in front of an audience. So she said, "I want you to work on changing some things up." And then the next stop was Calgary, which was with you, Barbara Corcoran, Sigourney Weaver. We had Suzanne Summers there. I think Ellen DeGeneres was supposed to be there, but she couldn't make it. So I arrived at this conference just terrified, thinking I'm going to bomb again. And this is just, what am I going to do? But I've committed. You can't just quit. So I walk into the pre-event and I meet you. And we immediately clicked and you said, "Do you want to have dinner?" And I said, "Sure." So we had dinner and I explained to you what happened. And so you gave me some tips and really helped me so much that I went back to my hotel room that night. I reorganized my presentation. I had more confidence in what I was doing, thanks to you. I walked out on that stage. I gave my presentation and a standing ovation from 3,500 women. It was like, drop that mic, girl. Whoa. And I look over to my left and there's Suzanne Summers getting ready to come, on stage after me and speak. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I did it. And so I share that story because I know I'm sure every single person listening here has had that experience where they just think, there's no way I can do it. And then maybe they try and they don't do so well. And a lot of times we just want to quit and give up and think this isn't for me. But when we do that, we sabotage our chances of doing something that is really special and meaningful and something that I really wanted. I just needed some support, And so I thank you for that
You're
always.
you're so welcome. And also, though, I want to call attention to the fact that you had such purpose in what
Mm,
you were doing and such commitment, and your values really aligned with what you were talking about. And that's why, also, in addition to whatever advice I gave you, that you were able to go forth and do all the fabulous things that you've done.
thank you. Make me cry. And I mean, but one of the things now it's coming to me a little bit clearer that we did talk about, because it was many years ago, being authentic and not being afraid of being who you are. And so I feel like when I did walk out on that stage, I just shared from my heart who I am and what I do and my purpose and passion for helping women feel better about themselves rather than just painting on the lipstick every day. If that doesn't matter unless you don't feel good about who you are. And most of us have lost touch with that. And so I feel that if we are tapping into what's really important to us and why, that helps drive us So that way we can take the steps towards whatever it is what we want to do. And with those steps, you do build confidence over time. And then you become more self-assured that, okay, I can do this, and it's working. And if it's not working, that's okay too. There's no such thing as failure, because let me tell you, I've had a lot of failures. I've had people on TV tell me my voice is awful, I'm not good enough. I've had, if I can't even tell you how many critics. Um, it's a tough business, television.
Critic,
But
truly.
you do
Everyone's a critic.
yeah, we all go through that, right? But we really have to realize that even when we're not succeeding, we're always learning and growing, which helps us push forward to be better.
I really am curious about how people view success. And there's a lot of people, men and women I know of, and I think men may suffer from this more than women, at least professionally, Michelle, who view success as a certain thing. It's usually monetary, right? Great wealth, power, people recognition, people knowing you, that kind of thing. And so, what I've often found is that it doesn't truly align, unlike yourself, with their purpose and their values. And so, at some point, they get stuck and they get miserable. And it comes out in all different kinds of ways. And I think it is that misalignment that really leads people off the track that they really want to be on.
And then it's difficult to really get clear and honest with yourself when that happens, because a lot of times people are afraid to make the change to do something different. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And I get it. If you have a family to support,
Right.
or even yourself to support, and
Mhm.
make that change and say, no, this really isn't working for me. How do I go about reframing this? And it's very scary because also on top of one, one's own kind of feeling of what's important, and there are the expectations of what other people are going to think. So we get back to that judgment, which I think is really primary in why women especially do not break out and do not make the changes that they would like to, because of the fear of judgment, which then translates into not being liked.
And so how do you work with women to overcome that fear?
We first have to unpack all of the, I'll call it, emotional baggage that they are bringing to this situation. What was their background? What was their family's view on money and success? What plans did they have for you? How did you differ in your thinking from them? Or did you differ in your thinking? And once we really look at that with deep reflection, then I say, well, what would you like now? And we go through a list of what I call pluses and deltas of what their skills are, what their talents are, what their personality pluses and deltas are. And pluses I'm using in the things that are real positives and that we would like to strengthen and reinforce. And the deltas are the things that don't work so well for people. And we would like to hopefully alleviate, maybe even eliminate, if we're lucky enough. But so we look at all that and say, well, what's it going to take for you to move out of this comfort zone? What's it going to take for you to really get unstuck
Right.
and move to unstoppable?
Mm. Which everyone wants. to be
Whichever
back to
one.
unstable.
I think unless you are really enjoying being a victim or a
Yes.
martyr or a whiner, right? Which we've certainly met a lot of in our lives, Michelle.
Yeah. Oh, it it takes you down. It doesn't work. And my whole childhood, my mother was like, "You want to be a makeup artist, you want to be a stylist and work in television. Let's go for it." Signed me up for makeup artistry school, hair school. I went to school in the University of London for fashion. But my dad was like, "No, you need to go to college, you need to get a real job. People aren't, this is not a profession," especially back in the late 70s, early 80s. People weren't waking up and going, "I want to be a makeup artist. I want to work in television and beauty." And so I really struggled with that. And it took me a long time to be okay with going for the career that I wanted. I was actually working with Dan Rather and Connie Chung, and I'm calling my dad, going, "Look who I'm with." And that's what it takes. It takes you just doing it anyway, because the people that love you, they are really they're inflicting on you their views because they think that's the way to keep you safe and secure.
Right.
And that's all my dad wanted for me. He just thought that my path was not going to be safe and secure if I went down the road that I'm on now. And now his biggest, he's my biggest cheerleader. So it's so important, I think, for people to understand that if you do it anyway, the people that love you are going to support you no matter what. We're holding ourselves back because we are trying to live up to other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And when we do that, then we are the victim.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of moxie, commitment, perseverance. If you've got a goal, if you've got a dream, and it's a big one, it takes a lot.
I think a lot of the things that drove me was trying to live up to others' expectations and really finding that that was making me super unhappy. So I had no choice but to change my direction and go in the direction of my dreams. Otherwise, I was just very unhappy. Bottom line. So listen to what's going on, right? And how you're feeling. And because a lot of times I feel like, as women, we're walking around pretending we're okay, and we're not necessarily, because we're not listening to what's really calling us. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of, women are taught from social norms to be very accommodating, to be very polite and flexible. And so pursuing what we want with a real focus is antithetical to everything that we have been taught.
Peggy, I just want to pause for a moment to thank our sponsor, Keranique. They are the leading name in hair growth solutions. And if you're ready to achieve healthier, thicker, more beautiful hair, no matter your hair thinning concern, Keranique has got you covered. Their clinically proven and dermatologist recommended treatments are designed specifically for women, providing holistic hair care solutions that include treatments, shampoos, conditioners, and supplements to promote healthier hair from the inside out. So whether you're starting your hair growth journey or you're just looking to maintain gorgeous, healthy hair, Keranique has a solution for you. And the good news is, as a listener of The Beauty Shift, you get a 25% discount off your first order site-wide with the promo code BeautyShift25. So just visit shop.keranique.com and use our code at checkout. I would love for you to share your story that we talked about recently, how you really decided that you didn't want to retire yet because you can't leave this planet with so many women. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's why I'm talking so slow. So many women struggling with this. I guess I'll just put it that way because I don't want to tell your story for you. But when you
Okay.
shared this with me the other day, because it was so much fun, we got on a little call and got caught up. I just want you to share this epiphany that happened to you recently in the last couple of years.
All right. I'm happy to do it. So this is what happened. We were in the middle of COVID. It was late 2021. And I was executive coaching and doing virtual workshops out here from my new home in Santa Fe. And I was feeling antsy, like there was something more that I needed to be doing. I had no idea what it was. And one night I had a bunch of women for dinner, and out of my mouth popped the question, what characteristic do you wish you had had more of as you were growing up? And or that you wish you had more of now? The response was unanimous confidence. And so I reached out to friends and their daughters and my family members and colleagues, ranging in age from 20 to 100. And I got the exact same response, confidence. And I could not believe what I was hearing. After all these years of doing this work, of billions of dollars being spent in trainings for women's leadership, books being written, news articles, podcasts, I was despondent. And it took me about a week to even find the words about how I felt about this response. And I was talking to a very dear friend of mine here, and I was telling her how upset I was and that I felt like I should do something. However, I'm at the age where a lot of people are retiring and I see them having so much leisure time. They're reading and they're painting and they're sculpting and they're traveling. Thinking, that that seems like a good idea. And my friend said to me, Peg, go big or go home. And I took a deep breath and I said, I'm going big. And it was at that time that I created Unstoppable Confidence. I put together an online course for 12 weeks, 2-hour modules each week, gathered 10 women who did not know each other, and I only knew a few. And we went through these modules, and I was able to get great positive feedback as well as constructive feedback. And I took that, Michelle, and I've just been tweaking it and offering it. And now, as of January, feel that the keynotes and the workshops are launchable. So that's how I came up with it.
What do you feel is the leading contributor to so many women not feeling confident?
The fear of being judged and then not being liked. And my response to that is a little curt, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is get over it because you are being judged all the time. You walk down the street, you walk into a meeting, you walk, you're on the phone, you're on the Zoom. It takes 1/1000th of a second before people start to click off judgments about you. And this is even if they know you and if the impression is good, but they are trying to assess what they feel about you. How are you coming across? And so many of us don't think about this. And it is to our detriment. But the thing is, are you bringing your best self? to the stage? Are you bringing those pluses in your personality and your communication and your leadership to whatever stage you're on? That's what I think. And I think also, to be fair, there are a lot of things that interplay with one another that cause women to feel less confident. There's the individual background and history, there's the individual psychology and biology, then there's the social norms. We've got the neurological aspect of it that is very pertinent to women. For example, you've got what is it? The bilateral activation in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for a lot of self reflection and consideration, which then makes us take more time and thoughtfulness about taking those risks. Men don't have as much activation. We've got the hormones, testosterone and estrogen, and you name it. There's so many things that are contending for women in trying to get confidence, but confidence isn't innate.
Yeah.
It is something that is cultivated. And even though we can look at someone, and you said the other day, your son just seems like he was born with it, right? And I'm not sure how I think about that, because I know people exactly like your son who it seems like, well, they popped out of the womb and the world was their oyster. But I think that it is predominantly about cultivating.
And how we were raised, I'm sure as well, because my mother really believed in everything that I've always wanted. She's been such a big fan of anything I want to do, and yet she didn't have any confidence in herself. So I felt as if she was pushing me because she didn't want me to be like her and not as confident. However, at the same time, which I've talked to you about this before, I didn't have that role model of someone who would just get out there and do it anyway. Whereas my girls now, in their 20s and almost 30 years old, the confidence they have, and then my son, of course, too, the confidence these kids have at their ages. If I had had that confidence at their ages, it would have been a game changer. But it's also, I raised them totally different because they saw me take a lot of risks. They saw me scared to death and do it anyway. And I'm always pushing them to do what they feel is calling them in their heart and not be afraid. But for the generation of women, right now, 30s and up, it's a little different because we didn't have the role models.
Exactly. And when I graduated from college and then from graduate school, there was very little that was expected of me, in terms of, I think the projection was, well, she'll get married, she'll have kids, and continue the lineage. So anything that I did over and above that, or in addition to that, was like gravy. People said, "Oh, I can't believe what," right? And nowadays, economically, one has to work, or most of us have to work. And I think societally, it's, I would say, expected that young women will work and put their talents and their skills and their brains, where they would really like them to be. The reason that I picked this demographic of 30 to 55 in the workplace to launch this is because I see women in this age group really challenged with all that's on their plate. I mean, you mentioned it before, but this is the time when they are finding partners.
Mhm.
A lot of them are having kids. They have to care for elderly parents, and women are still the ones who are carrying most of the burden for the household responsibilities.
Yes.
And they come to me and they say, how do I do this, Peggy? And, you know, we used to be so focused on, well, balance, you know. Carol Bartz, the old CEO from Autodesk, said there is no such thing as balance. She said, some days I'm a better CEO than I am a mother and a wife. And some days I'm a better mother and a wife than I am a CEO. But it is never 50-50. You know, it just isn't. So get that out of your heads. I will never forget her saying that.
I think we all strive for some level of perfection, which is not possible. And so we beat ourselves up and we shame ourselves to death. And we, it's just like whipping post, right? It's just a never ending cycle, which it's not doing anything but wreaking havoc on our psyche and our bodies. And I do think that men handle it a lot better, but I do see like my husband, and I have a friend that we were just talking the other night. He's an ER doctor, where they do struggle with some of the same things too. We just are more emotional beings, I believe, as women, and so we tend to beat ourselves up more and hold ourselves back. And sometimes I feel like that sabotages myself. I sabotage myself when I do that, because I might pass up opportunities, or I might not speak up for myself and say, no, I'm going to take some time out for myself, for my family. Like, we really have to learn how to speak up, and also not be afraid to ask for what we want. How do you suggest women dig deep to do that?
How much time do we have, Michelle?
I know.
We just talk
Oh,
all day.
I know. We have a part 2 coming up, I see, for this show. I can just sit here and ask you questions all day.
It's just the trilogy, the Michelle and Maggie trilogy. You know, you bring up a really interesting point about, I see it as boundaries, of creating boundaries for ourselves. And I've struggled with this. I know most women, both professionally and personally, who struggle with this because, again, we are taught through the social norms that we are supposed to be very accommodating and to put ourselves last. So I think my advice would be, again, to look at, what do you really want? Or I guess saying it, what do I really want? How do I want to show up in the world? What are the things that are important to me? And then sussing out how to change the behavior that you're doing presently in order to be that person that you aspire to. And I think holding boundaries, saying no, as you were just talking about, saying, I can do this and I'm not willing to do this, is really critical.
It is critical. Otherwise, you are sabotaging yourself. And when you do that, I used to think to myself, okay, no wonder I'm burnt out, bitchy, and no fun to be around, right? Because I wasn't creating any time for myself and making myself a priority. Once you do that, you'll see how important it is, because you realize how much more whole you feel, and that people do understand when you say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not able to commit to that. It's just, we've got to stop and take care of ourselves first. It's super important. What is the one thing that you really feel is important for women to know about just building your self-confidence? What's something that in your work that you just feel so strongly about, that you want women to just get in their soul of who they are?
Confidence is critical to leading the kind of life that you want. And that without it, you will not be able to take the steps, to have the courage to actualize that. And that you don't need 100% confidence. Again, as I say, Michelle, I don't know that we ever have that, but partial confidence is enough. And just do it. I know it sounds so banal, but do it and see what happens. Confidence is critical to leading the kind of life that you want. And that without it, you will not be able to take the steps, to have the courage to actualize that. And that you don't need 100% confidence.
Yeah.
Again, as I say, Michelle, I don't know that we ever have that, but partial confidence is enough.
The lack of confidence is coming from feeling that we're not enough.
Right.
And we are enough just as we are, where we are today, and build on that, and it'll continually grow. Well, I am so grateful for you being in my life and having you as a friend, and for you being here today and sharing your amazing wisdom and your inspiration. And I really hope that if someone, listening today or watching is struggling with self-confidence, that they check into your program, Unstoppable Confidence, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
What's your website where they can find the
It's
information?
just, www.peggyklaus.com.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always such a delight to be with you. And thank you for giving this opportunity and all the things you do for.
Mm.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Peggy. Mwah.
Mwah.
Peggy, this conversation has been an absolute masterclass in confidence, leadership, and owning our own brilliance. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your humor, and your no-nonsense advice with us today. If you're listening or if you're watching and you've ever held back from speaking up, feeling uncomfortable, promoting yourself, or struggled with imposter syndrome, let this be your reminder that you deserve to own your own achievements and step fully into your power. So, if you'd like to dive deeper into Peggy's work, be sure to check out her book, Brag, and visit her website, peggyklaus.com, to learn more. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Beauty Shift. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Keranique, America's #1 hair regrowth system created by women for women. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please feel free to share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to receive my free beauty and wellness gifts, just go to my website, michellephillips.com. I also invite you to join my social media community on Facebook and Instagram, Michelle Phillips Beauty.